This video is brought to you by Captivating History. This lively Europe.
Welcome. Today we're gonna be watching. I do believe it's pronounced the Basques explained in 14 minutes. Someone suggested that I watch this video. Don't know who these people are, but we're gonna learn, right? Welcome to Mr. Giant Reacts Ting and Ting and Ting. Let's YouTube it, simmer. See who the Basques are.
This video is brought to you by Captivating History. This lively European ethnic group has occupied the foothills of the Pyrenees Mountains for thousands of years, retaining their own distinctive language, character, and traditions, despite all odds. The Basques mostly live
I
in
pronounced it
southern
right.
Spain, with a smaller group living in southern France. For most of their history, they've retained their independence to some degree, despite various European powers' best efforts to subdue them. The Basque region, or Euskal Herria, has shifted its borders often throughout its long history, but it broadly encompasses the region around the western Pyrenees Mountains. Many Basque people live along the coast in a region of France and Spain known as the Bay of Biscay. This bay.
Okay, that's who I thought the Basques were mainly in Spain. I've heard of them before. Didn't they have like a little uprising a while back against the government or something? The Basque region of Spain, where there was some, rebellions and stuff going on. Comment down below. Let me know if I'm right or wrong. I seem to remember that, from a while back.
This is the region around the western Pyrenees Mountains. Many Basque people live along the coast in a region of France and Spain known as the Bay of Biscay. This bay is known for its picturesque views, stormy seas, and excellent fishing. Basques are famous for being fantastic sailors and rugged mountain dwellers. Although they are situated in a desirable region of Europe, the Basque people, long sheltered by the lofty Pyrenees mountain range, have succeeded in protecting their ancient identity. Recent genetic studies of the group have found that the Basques' claims that they are different from their neighbors are not just based on folklore, and DNA profiles of the Basque people reveal them to be distinct from both the French and Spanish populations surrounding them. A study conducted in 2015 traced their ancient origins to the Pyrenees to around 3000 to 5000 BCE during the Neolithic, although some scientists believe the group may have settled even earlier than that. Protected by the local landscape, the Basques are believed to have been sheltered from other migrating groups moving through Europe during the Stone Age. As a result, their distinct language is the oldest continuously spoken tongue in all of Europe.
Oh, wow.
Basque, or Euskara, is a language isolate, sharing no genealogical link with nearby regional languages. Besides their language, we know a bit about ancient Basque people from ancient stories passed down for many generations, and significant archaeological evidence recovered in the region. Before Christianity, the ancient Basques worshipped several pagan deities, but their most important god appears to have been a female earth deity called Mari. Mari lived in some cave, possibly high in the mountains, and she supposedly brought storms to the region to water the land and express her fury. Caves feature quite prominently in Basque mythology, symbolizing the land of the dead and the entrance to a world of magic. Not surprisingly, some of Europe's oldest cave paintings are found in the Basque region. Our first glimpse of the Basques in written accounts come from the Punic Wars, which were fought between Rome and the North African power of Carthage. The Iberian Peninsula was one of the main theaters of war during the conflict, with land passing back and forth between the two groups. The Basques appear to have fought for the Carthaginians, possibly even helping the legendary general Hannibal to invade Italy. While Rome ultimately defeated Carthage, the Basques were never entirely subjugated by the Romans. We know from Julius Caesar's writings that the Basques were divided into many small tribes at this time. One of the most prominent tribes, known as the Vascons, struck a deal with Caesar, allowing him free movement through the Pyrenees. The area between the River Ebro and the River Garonne ultimately became known as Vasconia after this group, and it was notoriously difficult to conquer. Although the entire Basque country was soon swallowed by the Roman Empire, like many other mountainous regions in the Roman provinces, it was less Romanized and wilder than its surroundings. Incredibly, The Basques were ultimately never fully incorporated into the empire because they were too difficult to control, because they could easily evade and surprise Roman soldiers with their superior knowledge of the surrounding mountain passes. The most Romanized part of Basque Country was the wealthy coastal area around the Bay of Biscay, which became an important region for commerce. After a lengthy peace, the Basque region would be plunged into war during the 5th century CE. The Roman Empire had begun to collapse during a period of lengthy barbarian invasions, and many foreign tribes had spread across the empire, looking to annex land for themselves. One group, the Visigoths, claimed most of what is now
Hold up
Spain
them
and
too.
southern France. However, the Visigoths, just like the Romans, would struggle to conquer the Basque people. Intense battles broke out between the two groups, but the Visigoths found much of Basque territory impossible to control. In particular, the Basque city of Pamplona was soon abandoned by the Goths, who could not subdue their fiery local population. While the Visigoths were soon weakened, soon a new threat emerged in the north, as the Frankish people slowly spread across most of what is today's France. The French portion of Basque territory became known as Gascony, part of the larger French province of Aquitaine. Despite the Franks' growing power during the early Middle Ages, Aquitaine was independent for a short time, kicking back against Frankish-opposed suzerainty. During the 8th century, the tiny kingdom of Aquitaine would reach its height under Odo the Great, a fearsome warrior who fended off both the warring Franks in the north and the Muslim invasions from the south. Odo is now seen as a great European hero, and he is best remembered for helping to beat back the incredibly successful Muslim invasion of Europe at the Battle of Toulouse. Unfortunately, Aquitaine would soon lose its independence to the Franks shortly after Odo's death. With Aquitaine under control, the Frankish emperor, Charlemagne, set his sights on Spain. Although Charlemagne was a successful ruler, and he would end up controlling a large part of Europe, he was finally brought to a halt in the Pyrenees by the fearsome Spanish Basques.
Now, isn't it ironic? Well, not so much ironic, but it's interesting, I should say, that the different parts of the world sort of have similar types of history and conflicts and stuff like that. Because here is Europe, right? And there's all these different tribes and all these different languages and all these different peoples coming and going, trading and doing all of that. Just as the same thing with Africa. All these different tribes coming and going, trading with each other, conquering each other, taking slaves, taking indentured servants, trying to find a balance between peace and all that to get along with each other more than lightly. Because, history just seemed to think to speak more of the war efforts and stuff like that. I wonder if there's a history that speak of people trying to find peace without the war. Just because history is a lot about the wars here and the conquering here and all of that, what about the group of people who were just looking for peaceful solutions? How come they are never spoken of? How come peace isn't glorified as much as war is glorified in history? Why can't somebody who fight for peace be the main hero, instead of somebody who is fighting for dominance, taking over, exploiting natural resources? Can we truly live with each other, trade with each other, and not try to dominate each other in order to have more than our share of what Mother Nature has out there for us? After all, it's all our world, right? We create countries and stuff to differentiate ourselves from each other. We emphasize our lineage to differentiate from each other. We coexist precariously, and at any moment, one tribe or one group of people or one nationality of people might say, you know what? No, I hate those people. Boom, and a fight start. The wars create centuries of animosity, unless tribes are deemed extinct or totally overpowered, like the Native Americans here. And still, it's kind of tempestuous how they live. relegated to reservations, have the worst school systems, the worst living conditions. And I wonder if substances were used to subdue them. Like with the Native Americans, it was the rum. You know what I mean? They sell it for a bottle. They sell land for a bottle of rum, which is something that happens a lot, which makes it seem that these people aren't smart enough after they got them addicted to the alcohol to pretty much take the stuff from them. And can that be correlated to the scourge of drugs and stuff in certain areas? And it doesn't have to go along color lines neither. It goes along class lines. Like in modern times, rich people do cocaine. Poor people do crack, which is a generic form of the cocaine itself, which is worse. Neither is bad, is good, but which is worse because it seemed to have demoralized and whole generations of people. It's crazy. Let's keep going. That would be a nice little thing to check out. See if there was a scourge of addiction and stuff within those times by the poorer classes. Did kids back then look up to like the criminals? You know what I mean? Because in these times, like they have romanticized pirates and stuff like that, and pillagers and all of that in these times. Was it the same as back there? Do the kids back there says, oh man, I want to grow up to be a pirate, I want to grow up to be a Bluebeard or Redbeard or whatever they call those pirates back in the day. I want to be like him because he's got the nicest boat, and he's wearing the best garb, you know what I mean? I wonder if it's the same type of way the society is, which means we just keep doing it over and over and over and over and over again. It's interesting.
Charlemagne's bid for Spain included one of the greatest battles of the European Dark Ages, the Battle of Roncevaux Pass in 778, during which the Basques had a stunning victory, ambushing the Franks on a mountain pass. The resounding defeat halted Charlemagne's ambitious expansion. The heavily romanticized battle was mythologized in one of the greatest works of medieval European literature, the Song of Roland. Growing in confidence after their victory, the tiny and resilient Basque kingdom in Spain would soon have its heyday. Once they had defeated the Franks, the Spanish Basques elected a renowned fighter, Inigo Aristo, as their first king. Aristo was seated in Pamplona and took control of its surrounding lands, shaking off the yoke of the Muslim Caliphate, which endeavored to control the whole of Iberia.
And that brings up a nice little question for me, okay? Because even with the Bible, when I was growing up, the Bible was all about peace and love, right? And I was raised Catholic, well, until I was like 12. But we was always taught the peace and love thing. But then, when I moved here, it was fire and brimstone, and God is a God of wrath, and he'll do this and he'll do that and he'll do the other. Now, here's the question, here's a cool question to ask yourself. For those who are the subordinates, was it being taught that God was a God of love and peace to sort of indoctrinate us into believing in peace and all of that? But to the ones that did the conquering, it was a God of fighting, and you know what I mean? And then, is this the reason why whenever they take over a place, they kill the religion there because they know how they use the religion to control the people, whereas they use the religion to boost their, their warrior-like thing, Nice little thing. Comment down below. Don't leave me here babbling alone. Comment down below.
The Basque kingdom in Spain came to be known as the Kingdom of Navarre, and it would remain independent for centuries. In later history, the Spanish in general would come to be very proud of this tiny region, the only part of Spain, besides neighboring Asturias, which resisted Muslim rule for almost the entire Middle Ages. By the 11th century, Navarre would expand under the kingdom's most famous king, Sancho the Great, absorbing large chunks of northern Spain. The kingdoms of Castile and Aragon would soon break away from the Basque Navarre, and throughout the rest of the Middle Ages, the emerging Christian kingdoms in Spain would shift and change in size and importance. Sometimes Navarre would be stronger, sometimes it would be subdued by another region. By the end of the Middle Ages, Christian Spain had conquered the rest of the Iberian Peninsula and merged to become one country, officially uniting in 1492. The Kingdom of Navarre would hold out against this union a little longer, before eventually being absorbed in 1512. Fortunately for the Basques, the Spanish set up the fuero system, a type of charter granting Navarre some independent powers, allowing them to govern themselves to some extent. Spanish Basque country would remain this way for many centuries, while the topmost part of Navarre, located in France, became a different semi-independent kingdom, the Kingdom of Navarre-Bearn, which the kings of France typically inherited. The French Basque Country and Spanish Basque Country would maintain some semblance of self-rule under the now firmly established European states of France and Spain the next several centuries. The Basque lands would grow to become wealthy and prosperous from crucial industries such as fishing and whaling. While the land thrived, Spanish Navarre was briefly rocked by catastrophic witch trials in the 1600s, in which thousands were accused of sorcery and many fled to France. These brutal trials were some of the largest in history, and the investigation victims are still mourned to this day. It wouldn't be long till Basque autonomy was challenged. In France, the Basques were gradually integrated into French culture over the centuries, and they lost much of their character, in a way that the Spanish Basques did not. In 1789, when the French Revolution broke out, the French government was reorganized under a heavily centralized system, and the French Basques ceased to be independent altogether. In Spain, a similar attempt at centralization was made in the 19th century. However, when the liberal government tried to reduce Basque powers in the 1830s, the Basques supported a conservative usurper king, Carlos V, to keep their independent status. This was the First Carlist War. Carlos would ultimately lose the war, officially ending home rule for the Basques and causing many to emigrate to the US in search of greater freedom. A few years later, during the Third Carlist War in the 1870s, the Basques briefly broke away from Spain, temporarily creating their own Basque kingdom in the north, defying Madrid's central government. Once again, the Basques were on the losing side. However, the central government granted them a few concessions, allowing the Basques to have some economic control over their lands to prevent further uprisings. Independent-minded Basques in Spain would continue to agitate for more independence throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, feeling they had been unjustly stripped of their ancestral rights. It appeared that they might get their wish in the early 1930s. When the Spanish Republic was created, long-standing tensions between the different competing groups in Spain soon led to civil war, during which the Basques supported the Republican army against the fascist forces of General Franco. Unfortunately, Franco was supported by the Nazi government in Germany, and he quickly swept Republican forces aside in a devastatingly bloody conflict. One of the biggest atrocities of the Spanish Civil War happened in Basque territory, when Franco's German allies bombed the town of Guernica into the ground, killing hundreds of defenseless civilians. Remarkably, the tree of Guernica, a symbol of the Basque freedom, was left untouched while the rest of the city dissolved in the carnage. The terrifying atrocity was later forever immortalized by Pablo Picasso's haunting painting, Guernica. After Franco won the Spanish Civil War, he was particularly cruel to the Basque people and many other groups in Spain who wished to become independent. He banned the Basque language, along with Basque nationalist groups, and hundreds were executed on suspicion of rebellious activity. By then, many rebellious Basques in France and Spain supported the Allies in World War II against the forces of fascism. Basque speakers were also used to pass coded messages to the Allies in the US because the Basque language is rarely spoken and hard to translate. After World War II, the Basques were also an essential part of the Spanish resistance to dictator Franco, taking any opportunity they could to disrupt Spain's fascist government. Under Franco, ETA, the notorious Basque terrorist group, formed, determined to break from Spanish rule under a tyrannical government. At their height, the the ETA even managed to assassinate Franco's prime minister in 1973. Fortunately, in 1975, Franco died, and the King of Spain, Juan Carlos I, immediately set about establishing a democracy. Spain's new constitution, written in 1978, has made Spain one of the most...
Okay, so that's what I remember, the 1978 situation. I remember that. Because 1979 was our revolution, so then they probably talk about the Basque rebellions and stuff that happened there during then. So that's where I remember that. All right.
Radically decentralized countries globally, as more and more powers have been devolved to Spain regions. Although the Basques were subsequently granted much autonomy, the radical ETA remained active after the fascist government was deposed. Many Basque people were still not satisfied with anything less than a fully independent homeland. Tensions between the ETA and the Spanish government were aggravated again in the 1980s, where GAL, a rogue illegal paramilitary group connected to the central government, kidnapped, tortured, and killed ETA members. Although GAL members were eventually discovered and arrested, the catastrophic incident was terrible for Basque-Spanish relations. The Basque ETA continued to cause problems for Spain, demanding an independent homeland of their own and carrying out attacks. In 1997, the ETA kidnapped and killed a local Basque politician. In the early 2000s, the group conducted many terrorist attacks against police,
I remember this too.
politicians, journalists, and ordinary people, causing outcry against modern Basques. Fortunately, since popular support for the ETA has dramatically declined in the last 2 decades, the ETA officially signed a peace accord in 2018, officially disbanding and promising to give up their terrorist activities. At present, as Basque radicalism continues to wind down, the Basque regions of France and Spain have become popular, peaceful, and scenic tourist locations, known for their beautiful scenery, unusual traditions, and fantastic food.
Whew.
To learn more about the Basques,
All right, that was quite interesting. Like I knew about the Basques from before, but I wasn't quite sure, so I wasn't about to run off at the mouth and take it. You know what I mean? But I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learn a little something from it. Like I did. What gets me about a lot of the things that I see here, it starts explaining to me a lot of the upheavals in the 70s and the 80s that I lived through as a youngster. You know what I mean? This didn't just erupt. There's a history of all that stuff up until that point. You know what I mean? But anyway, man, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this with me and thing, you know what I mean? I'll leave a link in the description for this video. And also leave cards here with other videos that on this very same, not the very same topic, but in the same vein as this topic. You understand what I'm saying? Thing. And hey, drop a like, comment down below, drop some more info in the comment section. I read all the comments and thing. You know what I mean? Because I get all different types of perspectives in the comment section, especially if you're from that region. Hook a brethren up, let them know what the vibe is and thing, alright? In the meantime, you all take care of each other, alright? Cool runnings.